Hi, I'm Kit. I'm the creator of The Crafting of Chess, a little lit RPG book, and I'm here to talk about crafting cultural references in fiction. In some ways, this is to honor Ready Player One and the sequel that just got released, which I've not read yet and probably won't read for a few months due to my current wait list of books. But I feel that this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I enjoy having Easter eggs and cultural references in my pieces of fiction, even if it's just a little bit or even if it's a lot, depending upon how appropriate it is for the piece of fiction that I am writing. Um, I can direct you to some of the things that I've done that relate to that. But so when you include cultural references in fiction, you kind of have different spheres of influence that you are doing that. You have world building, you have character building, you have plot building, and the basic building blocks of any novel. And in any of these aspects, you could have cultural references, assuming that it is mostly appropriate for what you are writing. There are times that I've seen authors have like modern cultural references in fantasy novels, and it doesn't always work. And even in a comedic sense, it can be a bit tricky for the quality of the writing and how to do it. But it's possible, depending upon how you choose to build the system that way. I'm going to talk about the basics of it. There are subtle ones in which you are alluding to cultural references, and then there are in your face ones, which are like, look at this. I'm going to directly reference this one thing, and hopefully the audience will get it. Or maybe there'll be footnotes and they'll be interested in learning more, or they'll do research on their own. There's a risk when doing blunt cultural references. The risk is you become dated. Talk about the Nokia phone, uh, old bit of technology that it like from the past that is just no longer used, and suddenly it's in this book and it pulls the reader out. Now, this is less of an issue in general because most of the time, people who read your books, all of that reading happens in the first year or two of the release. So it's I suppose it is a minor issue, but if you want your book to become a classic, something that is read over the decades, then you might want to be more careful about the exact cultural references you are picking. Will they be timeless? Will they be a flash in the pan? And as a writer, you don't always know what it's going to be beforehand. You can try to make guesses. You can try to overload it with so many things that some of them will be right and other ones will be forgettable enough that you'll be forgiven. But that is, of course, the risk. Now, the benefit of having cultural references is that it makes things easier to relate to for the reader. They're like, oh, I know that. I understand that. I'm sure you've all seen the meme of Captain America talking about how he finally gets that reference. And that type of connection is what you are looking to give to your readers. Now, It can be, like I said, it can be blunt or it can be subtle. I have my own theories on it. I generally like the method where it is both blunt and subtle, meaning that it's bluntly there, but it's not commented on by the characters like they got it bluntly smacked in the face. Because I feel that outside of rare scenes, rarely is it appropriate to pull your character out of the current bit of plot or action to have them comment on that. At least not too many times. And I really like adding Easter eggs to my books. So, as much as I wish to talk about how risky it is, I love it. I enjoy it immensely. It's one of the things that drew me to writing literary role playing games is how I could reference things similar to how Ready Player One did it, or how many authors in the genre do. Now, I'm going to talk about the three spheres. With world building, you're having the references not be related to the plot or the characters. They're just kind of like building depth, similar to how you do descriptions or talk about some obscure family and fantasy or some bit of technology and science fiction. You are establishing that these things that exist in our universe exist in this universe and add cultural relevance to the story that ideally transcends and makes the book better. Now, this wouldn't necessarily affect the plot, it wouldn't necessarily affect the characterization that much. You kind of, it's adding specificity. So, a lot of the risks that authors make when writing is that their books lack specific details. And cultural references are a really easy way to add a two-word topic, be it Star Wars or Doctor Who, that is something that's very specific and clear in the mind of the readers without piling on lots of exposition or detail to try to get the readers to understand that aspect of the universe. So it adds this concrete, specific detail that builds depth through shared experiences with the readers. It's very useful. It is almost like a product placement, but not. Um, Hopefully, it won't get you into too much trouble by doing this, and everybody's afraid and wants everything to be unique. I'll replace Coke with cack or something strange, but no. Generally, within fair use, you can do these kinds of references. In fact, I generally highly recommend it if you're setting anything that is a close facsimile to the universe we are living in. Now I'm going to talk character building. This is when those cultural references have meaning to the characters in the story. They could hate it, they could love it, they could be experiencing it for the first time. This is the first time they've ever seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you want to evoke that feeling for the audience and the character at the same time, and you're showing what these characters like. Because character development is showing that relationship that the character has with different things, and you can include pop culture in that. And that is highly, again, you're providing something specific that the audience can understand. And it really adds depth to the character for them to have these kind of opinions, because we have these kind of opinions in real life. We have fandoms that we hate and love and care, and our opinions change about all the time. Be it Harry Potter and Death of the Author, or Orson Scott Card and Ender's Game. You read up on him, and these things that create this dynamic personality change in us, character development. Now, Trickier is when the pop culture references are relevant to the plot, which is what you kind of see in Ready Player One, where the story and the history of all these pop culture is involved together to create this interlocking piece of fiction that both educates and entertains, and knowing these bits of pop culture is a strength for the characters and part of the plot. Now, it's tricky when you do that as well, because if you get something wrong, people will really castigate you. If it's too obscure or too common, you'll also have people being upset. Um, so there's this strange balance here where you have this thing and it's part of the plot, and in this case, the specificity of the cultural reference can actually be a hindrance to you, in that since it's part of the plot, the oddity that you're using to further the plot often will need to be explained in detail anyway. So I'm not a giant fan of it directly being in the plot like that. Now, I'm going to talk about Easter eggs. Easter eggs are all of these references, generally less specific. I like having authors of books that I like show up, which can be annoying if my fan reads a lot from those authors and like, why is this person showing up? When a name is just a name and most readers will just skim over it like it's any random Joe Schmo. I like having little scenes that have indirect references to things. Like if you read it a different way, suddenly it becomes very clear what I'm doing. And these are just, I find it fun. And one thing about writing is, even if I'm doing something serious, I want to have some fun in there for myself. Um, so I'm a giant fan of this topic. Now, you bring up these feelings of nostalgia, you honor people. Um, Oftentimes, even in older pieces of fiction, you'll see other authors have their characters do the same thing, though generally it's more in your face in the modern day. Um, so I hope that it is something that more authors explore. I mean, just being a fan gives you the necessary ingredients needed to add this to your writing. As for the skills in adding it to your writing in the correct way, your best bet is to read how other authors have done it. And if you don't mind being a little obscure, sometimes working on poetry or abstract forms of fiction when you practice, like how to say something when it's not, and how to describe a something in a unique way, those can help you design these ideas, these cultural references that you work into fiction. Um, Again, if any of you want to subscribe, have a suggestion, follow me on Twitter at WrightsKit. Um, I'm happy to respond. I'm just doing this in some for fun. And I hope somebody might watch this and enjoy it. Have a good day.